Hi, my name is Alicia Arnold, and I am in Miss Kathleen Miller's History 2 class. Today is October 20th, 2014, and this is my presentation on President Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was born to be a president. He was very motivated. Even as a young child, he had a desire to get along with others and be peaceful. Mr. Wilson wasn't afraid of bucking the system to fight for what he believed in. He never gave up on his desire to live in a peaceful world. As the economy was going under, he never looked down on the poor and homeless. It made his desire to help others live in a free world that was protected from banks going under and their money being taken. He fought for the working men and women. Will you agree with the measures that he took, or will you agree that wars will continue to be fought? Thomas Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, was born December 28, 1856, in Staunton, Virginia. His family heritage is actually from Ireland. He was a year old when his family moved to Augusta, Georgia. They later moved to Columbia, South Carolina. Wilson attended Davidson College. Later, he transferred to Princeton University, where he graduated in 1879. He went to the University of Virginia Law School and received a Ph.D. from Johns Hopkins University. Wilson then taught at Marr College. He married his wife Ellen Axon, with whom he had 3 daughters, Eleanor, Jessie, and Margaret Wilson. In 1890, Wilson became a professor at Princeton and later became the university president. In 1910, Wilson won the Democratic nomination to be the governor of New Jersey. He promised to wipe out corruption and offer protection for the union workers, as well as sharing his view as a progressive reformer. The working class men and women voted for him because he didn't look down on them. In 1912, Wilson became the Democratic presidential candidate, selecting Thomas Marshall, the governor of Indiana, and as his running mate. Wilson was elected President of the United States in 1912. His inauguration was on March 4, 1913. Wilson's administration is defined by his actions during World War I. He was the first Democratic elected president since Grover Cleveland. He didn't follow other presidents' leads because he wasn't focused on pleasing everyone in politics. He fought for the people. Even as World War I began, he tried to hold out to keep the peace, but unfortunately it failed. One of Wilson's greatest achievements was the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Because it created a system where the framework for regulating our nation's money supply, credit, and banking. People's money became safe, and it wouldn't be lost if a bank had to shut down. He also voted with legislation to put controls to ensure that large businesses and unions would receive fair treatment. On May 7, 1915, the British ocean liner the RMS Lusitania, which was a ferry for people and goods to be shipped across the Atlantic Ocean and through the United States and Great Britain. The ship was sunk by a German U-boat. Around 1,260 people were killed, and 128 of them were Americans. The event spurred the nation to officially enter World War I. The cartoon seen here makes fun of Wilson's reaction to the sinking of the Lusitania. It was actually drawn by Dr. Seuss, who began his career as a political cartoonist. Wilson ran for re-election in 1916, and one of his campaign slogans was, "He has kept us out of war." One of his buttons read, "Peace with honor." He He was anti war, and that is what got him reelected for the second time by a small measure. On March 30th, 1916, President Wilson made a proclamation to honor Flag Day, and many of the local businesses proudly flew flags in honor of our country. This is a quote from the Flag Day speech. As I see the winds lovingly unfold the beautiful lines of our great flag, I shall seem to see a hand pointing the way of duty, no matter how hard, no matter how long, which we shall tread while we vindicate the glory and honor of the United States. President Wilson signed the declaration of war against Germany on April 6, 1917. It was at this time that James Montgomery Flagg designed the iconic image of Uncle Sam, which is still used to this day. At the Paris Peace Conference, Wilson proposed the 14 points. Wilson hoped that it would prevent further wars and that he could make a call to all of the states for peace rather than death and fighting. However, he was mocked and everyone made fun of him because some of his points were a little outrageous. This cartoon shows President Wilson being made fun of because of his views for peace did little to resolve war. George Clemenceau of France openly made fun of President Wilson's 14 points by commenting that God only had 10 commandments. Also seen is a political cartoon placing Wilson and his 14 swats in the infamous Washington cherry tree tale. Father, I cannot tell a lie. I did it with my 14 swats. Woodrow Wilson was ultimately awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in his efforts to constructing the League of Nations. His prize is pictured in the slideshow. Wilson died at the age of 67 on February 3, 1924. He is buried in the mausoleum at the Washington National Cathedral. All of the research here shows that President Wilson was not afraid of conflicts, but he always tried to handle things peacefully. Throughout many years of his hard work, he was able to change the world, and the U.S. flag is still active to this day. Though it's not mandatory to be in schools at this time, it was for many years. He was very faithful to the people of his community, and I think that's shown here. The 14 points may have been over exaggerated, but his main goal again was just to keep the peace. He tried so hard to keep from officially going to war by trying to just believe the best in people, basically. And it was through that that he, was mocked. But the main thing is he always tried. He thought very carefully about the 14 points. He planned it. He wrote it. He didn't have the people of his office write it for him. And that too was part of his downfall. Many of the things that he wrote was not correctly done in the public's eye. But he did have an absolute faithful love for this world, for the United States, and even for, all of the other countries. He would have loved to have been a part of really helping all of the states and countries to just be at peace and try to help each other to be the best that they could be and to do right by one another. And I think that Woodrow Wilson actually stands tall and strong for the United States, and I actually think he did a good job. Thank you.